Welcome to the Mind of Business Success podcast. I'm your host, Alicia Kramer. Our guest today is Tony Martignetti. Did I say that right, Tony?
Perfectly. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Yes. Okay. So this is going to be an inspirational conversation, little bit of pun intended, because your business is inspired purpose coaching. And I know that you just embarked on a pretty deep, inspiring journey yourself, and we're going to get into that. And I know this is going to be a really great conversation. So officially welcome to the show, Tony.
Thank you so much. And I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Let's start by talking just a tiny little bit about what you're doing in business. So can you tell us a little bit about your company?
Yeah. So my company's called Inspired Purpose Coaching. And what we do is we work with leaders who I call them accomplished leaders because they usually don't know it, but they've accomplished a lot in life. And they got to this place where they're feeling unfulfilled or they feel like they want to make a bigger impact in life. And I'm here to help them along that path to see what else is possible. And I guide them through that process individually, but also I do a lot of group work where I'll take people through a journey together.
Fulfillment is a word that
Mm-hmm.
is oftentimes used almost haphazardly. Uh, we all know that we are reaching for a life of fulfillment. We want
Mm-hmm.
fulfillment in our business. We want fulfillment in our personal lives, in our family.
Yeah.
And it's one of those elusive things because it's somewhat intangible, right? You can't just swipe your credit card and whoop, there's some fulfillment, although people
Yeah.
try, right?
Yes.
um, but it requires the inner work. It is that inner journey. And especially high achievers, those
Mm.
individuals who have achieved and accomplished a lot. They've got their foot on the accelerator. It's go, go, go. They've become very efficient at achieving milestones and goals and accomplishing the things, checking
Mm.
stuff off the to-do list. And that in and of itself, in many cases, is devoid of fulfillment. You get that temporary rush of, whatever chemicals that make you feel good for maybe a couple seconds, or if you're lucky, a few minutes. And then it's like, oh, what's the next thing? Because now, that wasn't it. That wasn't the thing. It didn't make me
Yeah.
feel the way that I thought it was going to make me feel. So
Mm.
when we're talking about fulfillment from your perspective, what exactly does that mean for your clients?
Yeah, I love the way you've kind of teed this off because it truly is an inner game. And so many people who, myself included, had this external marker of what it means to be fulfilled. It's like getting something. It's like you attain something. The reality is, I see fulfillment as a mindset. It's a way to think about the world, to look at the world. And when you change that, you flip that script for yourself and others, you start to see that you can be fulfilled at any given point along the journey. You don't have to get to a destination to be fulfilled. It's how you look at who you are and what you're doing with the stuff what you're doing with the work that you're doing. That's makes a difference. And I said doing. Now, really, it's not just the doing; it's the being. And I'm happy to go more into that. But I think the reality is, am I being the person who I want to be? Am I doing the work that I'm called to be doing? And am I doing it in a way that really is connected with how I want to show up? It's so important. And when I work with people, that fulfillment is usually void because people looked at external markers. They looked at success defined based on other people's terms of what it looks like to be fulfilled, to be successful. And we need to change that and say, what do I really want for myself? How do I want to show up? And when we change that, it starts to change how we feel inside.
This is such a good conversation. I literally had a session with a client this morning, and this was the topic.
Mm.
And the question that I posed to her, and I really made her feel for the essence of the answer, not just, the crap that is already programmed into the mind, those conditioned responses. What does success actually feel like?
Mm.
And it's not what size house am I living in? What kind of car do I drive? How expensive is my jewelry? How much money do I have in the bank? How many accolades have I acquired? It is a feeling. It is that essence of being congruent with yourself, in alignment. Everything that you just so perfectly shared there. It's about who you're being and how you feel about what you're doing and doing the things that are in alignment with your purpose. And I feel very strongly, and I haven't found scientific evidence to back this claim up, just a disclaimer.
Yeah.
But I really do believe that our souls, if you want to call it that, you call it your higher self, whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter what term you want to slap on it, but that more spiritual aspect of ourself, that element of us that science says leaves the body, they can measure that, that weight difference when the something, right, exits the physical body, that non-physical part of us, that soul, if you will, it comes into this life experience with a few skills, a few talents, abilities, some things that are sort of like we each have our natural inclinations towards certain things, right? Those things that bring us that alignment, that make us feel good, where we take them for granted. We're like, that's so easy, right? That can't possibly be worth anything to anyone. But when we're in that zone, we feel alive. We have that essence of success and fulfillment. And that has nothing to do necessarily with what a lot of people are pursuing in life, and then wondering why they feel that void.
Yeah. I want to tap into this for a moment just to kind of, because I think what you just shared was, it really hit a nerve with me, because, I talked about my company name is called Inspired Purpose Coaching. And there's a reason behind all of that. Inspiration is really important to me. And it's what really, had me shifting into the work that I do now. I often say the inspiration is the communication with your soul's purpose. And I think there's something about that, which is to say that inspiration are the little clues in your life, the little clues that show up to tell you, hey, the reason why you're excited about this thing, or this thing is creating something in you, is because it's aligned with who you're meant to be, or what your soul is telling you. This is you at its core, just waiting to be revealed. Which I'm going to totally geek out for a moment and say that, like, my purpose is all about revealing the masterpiece in each person, that we all have a masterpiece, but we often hide it because we're afraid of what that might look like to other people. And so part of my work is really unearthing the artwork, the artistry inside each one of us, which is our soul. And now oftentimes when I'm meeting with tech leaders, they're like, what? But I have to I have to put it into a picture that allows them to see it first. So sometimes you got to take a couple clicks down from the surface and allow them to understand it. But that's really at the core what my work's about, is helping them to see the masterpiece that's hiding underneath the surface and allow them to really connect with that.
It's fascinating to be connecting with so many heart-centered, very conscious business owners who are doing their work in the world, and how most of us, I would say, to varying degrees, have had to somewhat dial it down, compartmentalize.
Yeah.
And I always say, it's you've got to meet people with where they're at, because if I just came straight out to a lot of people who maybe have just met me, or they're more of the conventional conditioning, right? Especially as
Yeah.
business owners, they're like, holy shit, I got to get away from this crazy woman. Right. But I'm an incredibly pragmatic person, and I'm
Mhm.
always looking at all sides of everything to see, is there congruence?
Mhm.
This spiritual principle, is there evidence that this is legit and not just, some kind of fantasy that somebody dreamt
Mhm.
up and, started to pump out into the world. Um, but at the core of most of this transformational work, if you're working with somebody like yourself, and you're
Mhm.
coming in from this sort of materialistic perspective, right? We've got to have the
Yeah.
numbers, we need our team to be performing, we've got to achieve these goals. And now, obviously, there's some degree of alignment, or they would not have found their way to you, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, there is in everyone, no matter what their sort of mindset or conditioning is, we all feel that inner desire for that fulfillment. And really, the way to it is to let go of all of the dogmas and the
Yeah. Yeah.
subconscious conditioning and all of the crap and the old emotional wounds. And that's that part you said about uncovering the masterpiece. It's like it's already there, it's just covered up with so much shit.
Yeah, yeah. All the dogma and the patterns we've gotten ourselves stuck in that when you ask somebody, like, and not that this is my go-to thing, but how are all those things serving you? Are they've gotten you to where you are now, but are they gonna get you to where you really want to go? Probably not. And I think that's important for people to really challenge themselves and ask them different questions to say, well, what is it going to take for me? What questions do I have to answer now that will allow me to get to a different level, to unlock that next level of potential? Which is why this, kind of a tagline of sorts that I always come to is inspiration through honest conversation. And the first honest conversation is the one you have with yourself, which is to say, am I willing and am I capable of digging in and answering the tough questions that, like, who am I really? What do I really want for myself? And am I willing to no longer tolerate the things that I'm accepting right now?
Such
Um,
powerful principles. And it's so much easier said than done. It really is. We are really good at not being honest with ourselves.
yeah, yeah, that's for sure. And I'll share, and I think maybe this will be a good place for me to just offer this up. I mentioned that I was just on this journey, and I'll talk more about it in a moment. But sometimes, even when we're in these amazing businesses we create, we become entrepreneurs, we we break free and get freedom from the corporate binds that keep us in place. We have to be careful from time to time to make sure that we don't create new prisons, if you know what I mean.
Let's use this as a segue to talk about
Yes.
your recent journey. So tell
Yeah.
us what crazy adventure you went on.
Okay. So um, I'll start with the real impetus of what's caused this to happen. About a year ago, I published a book called Climbing the Right Mountain. And I like climbing mountains. It's been a passion of mine. I'm not like, some expert climber, but I do love and enjoy it. Um, the book is about defining success on your own terms. It's more about fulfillment, not about mountain climbing per se. But when I wrote the book, I was asked by one of my mentors who said, hey, what's the next mountain you're going to climb? And immediately I thought, like, my gosh, what is the next mountain I'm going to climb? So the words that came out of my mouth is Kilimanjaro. And I just, as soon as I said it, I committed in my mind that I'm going to do this. So I started planning it. And about a month ago, I was on Kilimanjaro and climbing the mountain. It was one of the biggest challenges of my life. It was amazing, truly something that I'm glad I did. There were moments when I was like, okay, I think I'm done. But I just kept on going, and it was really an amazing experience. Now, beyond just climbing the mountain, I also spent the later part of my trip going on safari in Serengeti and going to um, the Ngorongoro Highlands. It's so hard to pronounce that word. Um, and it was just an amazing time to just be away and being with the animals and seeing them in the wild. It's just a different experience than anyone could ever imagine. You see them see animals in a zoo, and it's just different seeing in the wild and being so close to them. The big reason why I did this trip is not just because of the climbing in the mountain, but what I realized is that every once in a while I step away from my business and I really need to reboot and think differently about what it is what path I'm on, and why am I doing the things that I'm doing, and do I need to change things? It seems as though like I do this without even really thinking about it. When I first started my business, I took a month off and went to India. And most people would say, myself included, you're absolutely insane. You're just starting a business. How can you step away? And with all of the guilt, with all of the things that came up for me, I actually decided that this is the right thing for me to do, to step away, clear my head, and think about, what do I really want for myself in this moment? What do I want my business to look like? What do I want to feel like? And that was what led me into the path that I'm on. With this time, when I left my business for 3 weeks, completely off the grid, I was really thinking, well, I've gotten to this level, to this place where I am. I need to step away and stop, rinse, wash, and repeat, and doing the same thing over and over again, and think, what do I want to do next that is really going to light me up, to spark that, to reignite that spark, so that I continue on the path in a way that's intentional. So I talk about the intentional pause. That's what this pause was. It's for me to come back and check in, say, am I doing the right stuff that I want to do? And can I do it in a way that is going to make sure that it's going to continue to serve me so that I can serve others? Sorry for the long-winded answer.
You have used so many of the same words that I use, that we must be kindred spirits. I'm telling you. Okay. So
I honor you. That's fantastic.
There's so much richness in hitting that reset button, taking the step back. I mentioned to you real briefly before we started recording that I've sort of taken a step back as well. Not nearly as adventurously as you, but certainly I've made some pretty substantial changes in my life and even in my businesses over the past 2 months. So that willingness to get really vulnerable with yourself and ask yourself those hard questions, to look honestly and objectively at how you feel about what you're living, what you've created, where there is alignment and where there's misalignment, or maybe you've been avoiding a few things because you don't want to deal with that stuff. And it's just so much easier to just, keep going through the motions until one day you're like, I feel lost. A part of myself is missing. And it's not even necessarily that you have to be completely off your trajectory, but it is so important to keep making sure that if we start to deviate from our path, we get our ass back in line.
Yes.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not that we're bad for doing these things. It's normal for all of us to get stuck in certain, grooves, that they're there for a reason, because they become comfortable in a sense, and because everyone else is kind of on the same types of grooves that we're going into. Problem is that we have to just double check to make sure, okay, well, I don't know, like, is this serving me still? Is this particular thing that I'm doing, is it the right thing for me to be doing? And sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. And sometimes just little tweaks will make all the difference. But that's why we need that step away and really get that perspective. So I love that you shared that. It's really beautiful.
Well, now is a great time for me to ask you the question, the big question. If there is one mindset obstacle that you've overcome to get to where you are today that you would be willing to share with us.
Well, I'm going to use a quote to share this mindset, because I think it was the big difference for me, especially early days in starting my business and becoming a coach in general. And that was, if you're willing to feel everything, you can have anything. And it comes from Peter Bregman, who wrote Lead with Emotional Courage. I think I've got that right. But anyways, so the quote, and reason why it's so powerful to me is that there's a sense that, you have to be willing to expand your capacity to feel and to experience different emotions so that you can move past your comfort zone and see what else is possible. If I continued to stay stuck and not ask those questions that made me feel uncomfortable, then I would probably have stayed in the same place and not experience the things that I've experienced. And some of those things were really challenging things that I needed to go through in order to get on the other side of it. So that expanding my range through this shift in my mindset made all the difference. And I think it's important for people to think about where am I holding myself stuck because I'm afraid of what's on the other side of that.
Powerful.
Yeah.
Powerful.
Thank you.
All right, Tony, I would love to keep you. I would, truly. But since we are at the end of time, I need to make sure that our listeners know how they can connect with you. So can you please share with us your website, any other ways that you would like people to reach out to you?
Of course. And I just want to start by saying thank you so much for such a lovely conversation. This has been great. So the starting point would be to come into my website, inspiredpurposecoach.com. You can find out all types of fun stuff there. You can also find me on LinkedIn. You can find me, Tony Martignetti, there. And lastly, if you want, you can find my podcast, which is the Virtual Campfire, on any podcasting stations where you listen to it.
Awesome. So now, on occasion, I will ask a guest to just tune in and leave us with any final parting thoughts. And you, I know, can leave us with something perfect. So no pressure.
No pressure. Well, I've got one I want to share, which I think is really powerful, especially given this time. If you're feeling stuck, or if you're feeling like you're in a place where you're just not seeing the path forward, I offer expand your vision, narrow your focus. Expand, meaning move past what you're seeing in front of you, and then narrow your focus so you know that the next step forward is this one step. So expand your focus, your vision, and narrow your focus.
So we will allow everyone to sit in that, contemplate that. And no matter where you are in your life or in your business, we are all expanding. We are all growing. We are all moving forward. And it's a valuable question, no matter where you are, even if you're not stuck. We'll just say that. Yeah. Thank you so much, Tony, for being with us today.
Thank you.
And of course, thank you to our listeners. If you haven't already subscribed, make sure you do so. And until next time, we will see you in the next episode.